Fluorescent light spilled through the hole I'd just smashed in my office wall, warm yellow and flickering. The blueprints said there was nothing but cinder blocks behind that drywall, but here I was, staring at a finished corridor. The walls were papered in that sickly yellow shade you'd see in old hospitals, and the carpet squished beneath my work boots, cold and damp. From somewhere deeper down, a faint hum vibrated through the air, like a swarm of invisible insects. My shift had ended half an hour ago. I should have clocked out and headed home, but curiosity pulled harder than common sense. Taking a deep breath, I stepped through. As soon as my feet cleared the opening, the wall closed behind me with a soft, seamless whisper. No debris, no hole, just unbroken wallpaper, like I'd imagined breaking through entirely. My heart jumped into my throat. I pulled out my phone, but the screen froze on 12:07 a.m., refusing to budge. No bars, no service, nothing. I was completely cut off. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions, illuminated by buzzing fluorescent tubes mounted on the ceiling every few feet. The constant humming was low and droning, pressing against my ears. I marked an X into the wallpaper with my screwdriver, just to give myself something familiar, and started walking. Minutes passed, maybe longer. Every 40 steps or so, something felt off. A ceiling panel hung a little lower, or the floor tilted ever so slightly. The vents would blow warm air, then cold, as if some unseen hand was messing with the thermostat. I kept checking my phone, but it stayed frozen. Each step made my chest tighter, claustrophobia creeping in. Eventually, a sound reached me. An electronic beeping, steady and rhythmic, echoing from somewhere ahead. It sounded like a heart monitor losing a patient. That sound became my guide, pulling me along faster until I finally came upon an open janitor's closet. Inside, the shelves held cleaning supplies coated in a layer of grime and neglect. On the middle shelf sat an old pager straight from the 90s, blinking urgently. The tiny green screen flashed the numbers 911 repeatedly. No return number, no explanation. Without thinking, I grabbed it. And that's when I noticed my reflection distorted in the pager's scratched plastic. My face was stretched, unnatural, as if something was beneath my skin, tugging at the edges of who I was. Before I could process what I was seeing, the pager buzzed in my hand, rattling my nerves. A new message appeared, simple and terrifying. Don't turn around. I froze, the hum behind me growing louder, heavier. The carpet squelched as if something immense had shifted its weight, testing the ground beneath it. Every muscle in my body tensed, screaming at me to run. And that's exactly what I did. I sprinted down the corridor, my boots sinking slightly into the damp carpet with every step. Behind me, that relentless hum deepened into a guttural growl, growing closer with each passing second. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, drowning out even the buzz of the lights overhead. The corridor opened abruptly into a vast office space. Rows of old cubicles, their gray fabric walls dotted with pinholes and stained with age. Papers were scattered everywhere, chairs knocked over, coffee mugs abandoned mid-sip, as though everyone had fled in a sudden panic. An exit sign glowed dimly from the far wall, but it was upside down, like someone had mounted it as a cruel joke. The pager buzzed again, startling me as the new message blinked on the tiny screen. You left something open. At once, every open desk drawer slammed shut simultaneously, echoing like a gunshot in the empty room. A deep, croaking sound rumbled through the maze of cubicles. Something large was moving, unseen, hidden behind the partitions. I crouched down instinctively, eyes darting around, trying to find a way out. Scrambling through the maze of cubicles, I nearly tripped over a fallen chair. I caught myself against a nearby desk and saw a ceramic coffee mug hovering inches above the table, spinning slowly as though gravity had forgotten it. When I reached out, it shattered in midair, porcelain shards floating lazily upwards instead of falling. My breath caught in my throat. Every nerve screamed at me to move, but fear had rooted me in place until I felt the pager vibrate again. Run out of time. No spaces, just urgency in block letters. At the far wall, an elevator appeared, doors opening smoothly to reveal not an elevator car, but a massive shaft stretching infinitely upward and downward. Floors of identical offices stacked sideways, upside down, impossibly arranged. Far below, a red emergency light rotated slowly, painting everything in bloody strokes. Behind me, the invisible creature smashed through cubicles, papers flying as the desks cracked and splintered. Panic surged through me, and I ran toward the open elevator shaft. No time to think. No second chances. I jumped, reaching desperately toward one of the sideways floors. Gravity shifted midair, violently pulling me onto what should have been a wall. Monitors and keyboards crashed around me like falling debris. Dazed, I glanced back to see the elevator doors on the other side sealing shut, the glowing arrow above flipping from down to up. Before I could catch my breath, the phones around me began ringing one at a time, sharp and sudden. My pulse hammered as I picked up the nearest handset, my hand trembling. A voice crackled through the speaker, distorted and filled with static. "The line is open. Hurry before you close it." Then silence, followed by a warped, unsettling melody, some twisted lullaby that I almost recognized but couldn't quite place. Shadows began pooling around the cubicle walls, spilling onto the floor like ink. They crawled toward me, slow and deliberate, consuming everything in their path. The pager lit up again, desperate and direct. Find the stairs. Across the room, atop a filing cabinet that now served as flooring, stood a bright red fire exit door, impossibly upright amidst the chaos. The shadows were closing in, stretching clawed fingers toward me, and I sprinted for the exit, my feet slipping on scattered papers and shattered electronics. I crashed through the door, tumbling into a stairwell that twisted upwards and downwards simultaneously, an Escher-like nightmare of spiraling stairs. The door slammed shut behind me, and the lights above flickered out one by one, plunging me into a darkness that felt alive. With no choice left, I gripped the rail and began descending into the unknown, each step colder and heavier than the last. The stairwell felt endless, spiraling downward into a choking darkness. With every step, the buzzing of fluorescent lights faded, replaced by a heavy silence that pressed against my ears. Each landing twisted strangely, tilted a fraction more off-center than the last, until I wasn't sure which way was up or down. Behind me, always exactly one landing above, I heard the faint shuffle of another set of footsteps, pacing mine precisely. On the 13th landing, painted a sickly beige and devoid of any markings, the pager jolted me again with its buzzing. Quiet the hum. A steel door stood slightly ajar to my right, bathing the landing in a pale greenish glow. I pushed through and stepped onto an industrial catwalk suspended above a maintenance sublevel. The air was thick and smelled of electrical wiring and mildew. Rows of ballast boxes lined the walkway, humming steadily, the same maddening drone I'd heard from the start. As I moved forward, the humming shifted, changing pitch and rhythm until it resembled fragmented whispers. The metal catwalk trembled beneath my feet, vibrating in sync with that horrible sound. Below me, the floor appeared as a vast ocean of wet carpeting, rippling and shifting like something alive. A chill spread through my chest as the pager flashed again. Pull one fuse only. Rows of fuse cartridges extended out of sight, all identical, each labeled main lighting. But one stood out, a single fuse tied neatly with a red ribbon, fluttering gently despite the stale air. Cautiously, I approached it. Halfway there, heavy metallic footsteps echoed behind me, sending shivers down my spine. Something enormous and unseen was pacing the catwalk I just crossed. With no time left, I lunged forward and ripped out the ribboned fuse. Instantly, the humming ceased, replaced by deafening silence. The fluorescence snapped off, plunging everything into absolute darkness. The unseen thing shrieked, a terrifying blend of animalistic agony and grinding metal, and charged. The bolts holding the catwalk began popping loose beneath my feet. Running blind, I threw myself toward a distant exit sign that glowed dimly ahead. The walkway collapsed behind me just as I slammed through the exit door, landing hard on a linoleum floor in a completely different place. I pushed myself up, gasping for air. I was now standing in a deserted school hallway, lined with dented lockers and yellowed curling posters. It reeked of stale textbooks and dust. Through glass double doors at the far end, lightning silently flickered across a pitch-black sky. When I tried them, I found heavy chains looped around the handles, sealing me inside. The pager trembled again. Auditorium. A faded blue arrow pointed left. I followed it, my footsteps echoing through the empty corridor. Classroom after classroom revealed desks arranged to face the back walls, as though someone, or something, had been watching them from the hallway. From beneath the floors, children's voices recited multiplication tables, muffled and out of sync, endlessly repeating. When I reached the auditorium, I opened the doors onto a surreal scene. Ankle-deep water flooded the theater floor, soaking into rows of rotten, crumbling seats. An old overhead projector shone weakly onto the stage curtain, displaying a familiar blueprint, my office floor plan. I waited closer, heart pounding. When I lifted the transparency from the projector, the image changed instantly. Now it displayed the yellow corridors I'd been trapped in. A small blinking dot, me, kept splitting into new paths, each branching out endlessly. One by one, the dots reached dead ends and disappeared. The pager buzzed urgently. Choose right path. Behind the curtain, water sloshed heavily. A tall, shadowed shape emerged slowly, dragging something wet and heavy with each step. Frantically, I scanned the stage and spotted a single real door among painted wooden props. Without hesitation, I charged toward it. The shadow surged forward, but I moved faster, throwing myself through the real door as the darkness closed in. I stumbled forward, slamming the door shut behind me. Panting, I leaned heavily against it, feeling the wood shudder as something struck it from the other side. Then silence. Slowly, I lifted my head. Flickering neon lights bathed the narrow corridor around me in a sickly blue glow. I was standing inside a dingy motel hallway, faded wallpaper peeling at the seams, carpet worn thin beneath my boots. The stale scent of old cigarettes hung thick in the air. Door after door lined the hallway, each slightly ajar, casting thin slivers of pale yellow light onto the carpet. Inside every room, I saw frozen figures, people halted mid-motion. A woman combed her hair, paused with the brush inches from her head. A man sat frozen, halfway through turning a TV knob. Their faces were obscured, blurred like smudged ink on wet paper. In perfect unison, their heads turned slowly toward me, tracking my every step. At the far end of the hallway, I saw the motel's reception desk, complete with a tarnished brass bell resting on its surface. As if sensing my gaze, it rang softly, a gentle chime echoing eerily toward me. There was nobody at the desk. The pager buzzed again, vibrating hard enough to make my hand ache. Check in. My stomach tightened. As I approached the reception counter, the bell chimed again, louder this time, closer, almost at my shoulder, though nobody was there. I looked down at the desk. A dusty guest book lay open, pen resting neatly beside it. My breath caught in my throat when I noticed my own name, half written on the top line in handwriting I instantly recognized as mine. Before I could react, the hallway lights snapped cobalt blue, plunging everything into an unnatural twilight. Simultaneously, every motel room door swung fully open, darkness spilling out into the corridor like thick oil. The pager vibrated once more, displaying a frantic countdown. Clock is running. 0010. Panic surged through me. I grabbed the pen and scribbled the rest of my name, not even sure why, just desperate to do something. The second I finished, doors began slamming shut behind me, each bang stealing another precious second. I sprinted blindly down the corridor, every muscle screaming for escape. With 3 seconds left, the hallway around me shifted, colors bleeding into that familiar sickly yellow. The motel hallway melted seamlessly into the original corridor from before, the wallpaper bulging outward in front of me, forming a final rectangular opening. 2 seconds left. I lunged forward, diving desperately into the gap just as the timer hit 0. I crashed hard onto concrete, rolling through drywall dust and debris. Gasping, I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering painfully in my chest. Turning back, I saw only the familiar boiler room wall, solid and unbroken, exactly as it had been before I'd ever swung my hammer. No endless corridors, no doorways, no impossible spaces. Everything was normal again. For a brief, perfect moment, relief washed over me, until the pager buzzed one last time, making my blood run cold. Returned. My ears rang with the faint whisper of the hum, no longer around me but inside my head, soft but relentless. Shaking, I glanced down at my watch. The hands twitched and then froze, locked once again at exactly 12:07 a.m. The pager vibrated again, more gently now, delivering one final message. Shift begins again. Something metallic scraped softly against the concrete at my feet. I glanced down and saw the pen from the guest book, slowly dragging itself across the ground, writing out a single pleading word in jittery script. Stay. I bolted upstairs, my heart hammering against my ribs. Bursting through the stairwell door, I stopped short. Everything felt wrong, subtle but unmistakable. The hallway lights were too bright, the shadows a fraction too deep, the doors slightly narrower than before, and somehow, through the walls, I could sense it. The carpet was still breathing. The backrooms hadn't let me escape. They had simply moved the boundary closer. Listen closely. The hum might already be inside your walls. If this story left you with a lingering chill, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another dread-soaked tale. If a hidden hallway opened behind your drywall tonight, would you step inside or seal it shut forever? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching Cabin of Whispers. See you next time.